Who the hell are you?
What are you?
What the is this?
Movie.
Guy.
Welcome to another episode of the Movie TV Guy podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to start it off how we normally do with the weekend box office results. The big winner of the weekend was obviously Toy Story 4. Domestically, it grossed $118 million. Worldwide, when you bring in the foreign money, $238 million, which is obviously a massive success. The movie, I believe, had a budget of about $200 million, so they've already made back their budget. They're close to just nearing the profit. And I assume that this movie's going to play well for the rest of the summer, pretty much. Second and third place, the expectations and the results get a lot lower. Child's Play, the 2019 reboot, only had a budget of $10 million, so although $14 million opening weekend is not a big number, considering that they only need $6 million to double their budget and start getting into the profit range, they're going to be fine with that. That's the beauty of the horror genre. They normally end up making the movies for smaller budgets, so they don't need the billion-dollar gross like, say, an Avengers does. And in third place, because it's seemingly unstoppable, Aladdin, still in the top 3. Over the weekend, it made about $12 million more. It is now up to $810 million worldwide. Once again, Disney just printed money. And as far as box office results go, that's pretty much all we've got. There wasn't any big news this weekend because it really turned out the way that we expected it to. So done with the box office, let's get to some news.
It's time for news.
Avengers Endgame is going to come back to the theaters with some deleted scenes and a bonus tribute at the end. It's an extra 6 minutes of footage into the film, and I think it's really soon considering this has only been out of theaters for, maybe a couple of weeks. But they really seem to want to push it over Avatar to make it to the highest grossing film of all time worldwide. Currently, where we stand, Endgame has grossed $2.74 billion, Avatar $2.78 billion. So what Endgame is really hoping to do is re-release this thing with 6 minutes of footage that they're taking on at the end and make another, $43 million? I honestly think it's really just a cash grab. If you've seen Endgame already, it's not going to be anything that you wouldn't get on, say, a DVD or a Blu-ray when you bought that and saw the special features. I don't think that there's any need for this. It's really just Disney competing with themselves trying to get to the top spot. Moving on from Avengers Endgame, there's another movie coming in a franchise that feels like it's had almost as many films as the MCU. Paranormal Activity, it's been announced that there will be a 7th movie coming out. I really didn't even know that they had gotten that high. I couldn't even tell you before I started looking this up that Paranormal Activity 6 was The Ghost Dimension. If you are a big fan of the Paranormal Activity movies, maybe you'll be excited about that. I really can't see how high the quality will be. It's been diminishing returns ever since you got to really the second one, and they really had nothing else to do with it. What works out for these movies is that they always have really low budgets, so as long as it has a decent opening weekend, makes $15 to $20 million, it will already start to be profitable. In other horror-related news, Shudder TV is coming out with a series based on the 1982 movie Creepshow. If you don't know it, it was made by George A. Romero and Stephen King, and it's an anthology film that consisted of, I believe it's 5 stories, and it's all loosely based around an arc about a boy reading a comic book and the stories come to life that he's reading. They're going to do 6 episodes with 2 stories in each episode, but they released some casting news recently, and interestingly enough, it's a few people you wouldn't really expect to be in a horror TV series. Some you would, but the new names, Kid Cudi, who also was just announced is going to be in Bill and Ted 3, which I thought was interesting, Big Boy from Outkast, and then some more conventional names. You got Jeffrey Combs, who played Dr. Herbert West in Reanimator, Giancarlo Esposito, who everybody remembers as Gustavo Fring from Breaking Bad, Tobin Bell, who played Jigsaw. Another name that's going to be in the Creepshow series is Bruce Davison, which a lot of people know Bruce Davison from movies like Dahmer, and he's been a character actor for a long time. But when I think of Bruce Davison, I only think of him as Senator Kelly in X-Men, and I only think of the 2 scenes that you're going to see playing right now. And I don't really know if there's a way to make a good follow-up to this movie. The first one is just fantastic, and because you've got those 2 titans of horror, Stephen King and George A. Romero, who unfortunately George A. Romero has passed on, the horror pedigree then was off the charts. The only connection that this has to the original is Adrienne Barbeau, who was the horrible wife Wilma, but you can call her Billy, in the first movie, is appearing in the TV series now at 74 years old, which I think is just really cool that she's coming back for that. A couple more serious stories in the entertainment news now. The Red Sonja movie is pressing on. This has been in development a long time, since at least 2008, when Robert Rodriguez was going to produce and Rose McGowan was going to star. We don't know who the star will be, but we know who the director won't be. Bryan Singer has been fired. Jill Soloway, the creator of Transparent, she's taking over in his place. Not only was Singer criticized for not showing up to the set and other things going awry with Bohemian Rhapsody, but he's also been accused and settled many sexual misconduct allegations, so I don't think anybody will be too upset by the move. And unfortunately, speaking of sexual misconduct allegations, we actually have more news this week because of that. Max Landis, who hasn't really had any good news since the movie Chronicle came out, the sleeper hit that he wrote, was dropped by his manager following 8 new sexual assault allegations from 8 different women. Full disclosure, I used to be a big fan of Max Landis. I had actually interacted with him on Twitter a few times when I was in college taking screenwriting courses. And he was cool enough to respond to me, and he was already a success, and this was before movies like Me, Him, Her, and Bright, which flopped financially and critically. Now seeing how far his star has fallen and how terrible a person he's looking like, it's really awful. The director of Chronicle, Josh Trank, said he even had to ban him from the set of Chronicle, which is sad but not all the shocking in light of the news that's coming out. I don't think that any of this ends well for Landis, who had a movie in development that he had written called Deeper with Idris Elba set to star, and that seems like it's not going to go anywhere. It's been wiped from the slate. It's a shame because his father, John Landis, is an iconic figure in Hollywood who had a hand in movies like Animal House and American Werewolf in London, Trading Places, and The Blues Brothers. And to have his son sully the name is both sad for John Landis, sad for these women who had to deal with the abuse, and even sad for Max Landis too, who hopefully gets some help to correct his actions and really fix the person he seems to be right now. Now let's move past these serious topics and let's move on to something a little lighter. A docu-series is coming out based on the 1986 comedy Back to School, which is where Rodney Dangerfield ends up going to college with his son, Keith Gordon, who you might know as the 80s star. He was in The Legend of Billie Jean, he was in Christine, and he was the star of Back to School. And what they're doing now is it's going to be college students, and again, this is a docu-series, this isn't scripted, will be surprised as their new classmates, their parents. It seems like a pretty bad idea to me and really has little connection to the movie. I get that it's parents in college with their students, but that was very much a comedy, and this is an unscripted reality series. I really don't see the connection. The only connection that there actually seems to be is Rodney Dangerfield's widow, Joan Dangerfield, will have a part in producing, but to me this seems to, as Dangerfield would say, give no respect to the late comedian, who I can't see thinking that this would be a great idea. Now, at first, I thought I was going to take some time and talk about the MTV Movie and TV Awards and actually talk about it kind of seriously, but as I researched it, it just seemed too stupid to take seriously, if I'm being honest, so I'm going to announce some of the big wins to me and upsets. First, Ruth Bader Ginsburg won Best Real Life Hero, and she managed to defeat WWE's Roman Reigns, which sounds absolutely ridiculous. Now, full disclosure, Roman Reigns did beat cancer, which is fantastic, but just saying Ruth Bader Ginsburg beats Roman Reigns, come on. Best fight winner was Captain Marvel versus Minerva from Captain Marvel. If you were able to remember who Minerva is, good on you, because I had to Google the character, and I saw the movie in theaters, and I don't even remember that fight. That managed to beat out Captain America versus Thanos, where we get to see Cap use Thor's hammer. It beat out Arya versus the White Walkers in Game of Thrones, and of course, that managed to beat Ruth Bader Ginsburg versus Inequality. I'm not even making that up. That was really the nominee. So, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, able to defeat Roman Reigns, but couldn't beat Captain Marvel and Minerva. Now on something that I actually enjoyed looking into, Spider-Man Far From Home has a new clip that came out. It features Peter Parker and Mysterio talking, and you get to have a cool look at Mysterio's fishbowl head costume, which somehow doesn't look ridiculous. They're talking, having a heartfelt conversation. Mysterio tells him, "I look at you and I want to tell you to run away from all of this." And I think that seems really nice, and I know that in the commercial it says Mysterio is coming from a separate timeline. He's not from our world, something like that, with the snap ripping open the multiverse. But I think that obviously Mysterio is going to end up being a bad guy. He's been a major part of the Rogues Gallery for Spider-Man, and I think maybe there's a chance that they make him somewhat sympathetic and that he actually does like Peter, but he has a motivation for why he's doing what he's doing. But obviously, he's going to end up being the bad guy. That's not even a spoiler, that's just the history of Mysterio. In every comic book appearance, in every animated series appearance, he's been the bad guy. And finally, before I moved on to the second segment of the show, I wanted to take some time to talk about the new Stranger Things 3 trailer that dropped. And they've been doing a hell of a job marketing this because I've managed to talk about Stranger Things 3, I think in all 3 episodes I've done so far. So, first of all, the thing that they're really introducing is possession. There's a moment where they're talking about the mind flayer and they're talking about how they closed the gate already. And that's really what it seems like is going to be the major crux of the season, that somehow the mind flayer has not been gotten rid of, that he is in our world. And you get to see a bunch of stuff to me which seems like they're really painting the picture that Billy will be infected. You see all these images. It's Billy's voice saying, "You let us in, and now you're going to have to let us stay." But to me, I don't think it's Billy talking later in the trailer when you hear that possessed voice. Maybe that is just some audio work to make it sound like a possessed version of Billy, but I think it sounds like Hopper. Hopper, it sounds like saying, "We're going to end you. We're going to end your friends. Then we're going to end everyone." Again, I think it's Hopper because it makes sense to me from a story standpoint because Hopper has always been there to protect the kids and to protect 211. And I think if you take him away as a crutch for them this season, I think it really raises the stakes for 11, it raises the stakes for all of the kids, and it also is sympathetic as an audience because we don't want to see anything bad happen to Hopper. We want to see them save Hopper. You really only see Hopper in the one outfit in both of the trailers that come out, that outfit that it looks like on the fair night. And then it looks like you see him fighting this guy who you really can't tell who he is. Maybe he's a hitman, maybe he is with the government and trying to sweep everything under the rug that's been going on in Hawkins. But it also looks like, from one of the pictures I saw, that he was driving or is coming upon Hopper's car. So it looks like something could have happened to Hopper. Maybe that's just a hunch, but I really think Hopper doesn't look good for him in Stranger Things 3. Once again, this is the third week I'm mentioning that Stranger Things 3 is coming out July 4th. It is not that far away now. I am super excited and can't wait to binge this. Now it's time for my second segment of the show where I talk about a YouTuber I want to recommend to you. This week it is JXy. If you haven't heard of him, he's very small right now. Only got about 92,000 subscribers, which is funny from a guy who's talking who's got probably less than 20 subscribers at the moment I'm recording this. He does these very interesting videos where it seems like a lot of the time he's just nitpicking cinema sins and nitpicking what you missed videos and the ridiculousness of videos by channels like Screen Rant and Watch Mojo, and how some of what they do isn't what you miss, it's just things that were obvious and stood out. I think his channel is a lot of fun. I think he's an interesting person, and I think he's got a really interesting voice. I just think when you see him and when you hear his voice, it does not match up the way that you would expect it to. So JXy, I think worth checking out, and I want to thank you again for tuning in. I want to thank you for subscribing. I really want you guys to start liking, start commenting, share this channel, share this video, get it out there. I'd really appreciate it. And if you have any topics you want me to talk about in the next video, leave it down below. Thanks again.